Thank you, Raven. Yes, indeed, we have 3 of our semi-finalists decided here at the Europe Last Call Invitational. We are here to decide number 4, and it's going to be between Georgec and Nicslay. And this is a story of Mr. Consistency versus, you know, the man who's back with a vengeance after not being seen too much since the winter season. You know, who do you favour out of these 2 players?
I mean, I have to go with Georgec. He's been so consistent, like you mentioned. He's here yet again. This is his 3rd attempt now during the year to try to qualify for BlizzCon, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him go all the way.
Yep, so just very quickly on the bans before we get started, looks like Georgec has lost his Shaman, and no surprise, the Freeze Mage player has banned the Warrior. Nicslay is out his very greedy Warrior build. And we are going to get straight into it. Georgec leading out with the Hunter up against Nickslay's Malagos Druid. Nicslay with that coveted wild growth in his opening hand, but a strong curve here from Georgec nonetheless.
Certainly not wasting any time there, just mulliganing away that Ragnar. I was very happy with the 1-2 and the coined 4th drop potentially. The Barnes can have such a huge impact if he manages to pull off something like a high main or that Ragnar's that we saw there that he threw away.
Yeah,
but Nicslay not looking too bad. He has that wild growth, he has an innervate. We'll need to pick up some more tools from the nourishes, but yeah, not looking bad.
It's reasonable, right? Nicslay definitely has studied at the school of Muzzy. Muzzy advocates that if you study under him, you will draw wild growths and innovates every game. Of course, Muzzy, a player that you will see later on in the America's Last Call event. Very strong Druid player. Nicslay definitely drawing a strong opening hand here with the Druid. And it looks like we are just going to see the Wild Growth pass here from Nicslay on turn 2. Gives him access to some huge turns coming up now, especially having now drawn that Ancient of War already. He can afford to go really hard on ramp here if he wants to. Yep,
Georgec there picked up another 1-drop, so he had the option to go for the Fiery Bat instead of the Squire. But the Squire is more difficult to remove, since if Nicslay missed on the Wild Growth, he would have just been able to hero power down the Fiery Bat. So it might be useful later on, also in combination with something like a Houndmaster. There might be some potential there.
He also has the kill command in his hand. Of course, Druid is a deck that plays very high priority 3-5 targets. So if a 3-5 were to come down, he has that cheap beast activator in hand with the Fiery Bat that he can just use to fire off a kill command straight away. But Nicslay now has the decision about what exactly the texture of his hand is going to say to him this match. So he can decide to just go hard on the ramp here with the mana, go straight up to 6, give himself 7 next turn, straight into Ancient of War. That seems like possibly the most powerful play this turn. He still gets 2 full mana crystals from the Nourish that he can use to hero power off the shield on the Argent Squire this turn as well.
With double Nourishes, you absolutely go for the mana here. Ancient of War too. I think that whenever you have 2 Nourishes, you always, at least that's what I do. You always go for the mana first, unless you already had like something ridiculous like 7 or more mana. But it's going to keep Nicslay really well ahead on that mana, being able to potentially play that Ancient of War. He knows that on the following turn, he knows that Georgec is only running 1 deadly shot. So he might just go for kind of the gamble next turn and just drop the Ancient of War and hope that there is no kill command available for Georgec.
Yeah, feels a little bit weird just to essentially innovate as coin there to get the Nourish out, but you know it was necessary with the hand. It was that or do nothing this turn. So the decision was just draw a ramp, and Nicslay is for the reasons that you explained very clearly. He chose the correct option with the ramp, and now Georgec knows that the pressure is on him essentially to try and end this game quickly before Nicslay can get too much of an advantage out of all these turns of extra mana that he has available to him.
Yep, Georgec does have a play here with like Knife Juggler and the Fiery Bat if he wants to save the coin, but no high main in his hand, so I really like the Barnes. Plays a little bit more around Swipe as well.
Sounds like a wolf to me. That is a wolf.
That's pretty good. Yep. And Nicslay looking for a Swipe. It would still be decent, although it would not clear everything. Does not get it, only gets a Moonfire, so Ancient of War, pretty straightforward. Then just pray for no deadly shot, because if there was a deadly shot, the game would almost be over.
Yeah, absolutely. Kill command, I guess, the next best thing in this situation, but that Ancient of War is still going to take a lot of Georgec's board down with it, even with the kill command. So we might even see Georgec just try and develop extra minions here and try and save the removal turn for a turn later.
I wouldn't be too surprised, but if he does choose to do it here, he can push a few more damage points in. Well, actually,
one?
Not that many.
He gets to push one.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. How about the Juggler and trading the Infested Wolf? They would get some extra juggles.
Right, I mean, that relies on you basically have to ask yourself the question, if my opponent had Swipe in his hand, was Swipe better than the play that he made here, right? And if you make that play, playing Juggler, dropping a Fiery Bat as well, trading in your 1/1 Infested Wolf, suddenly you have literally the world's most swipeable board. So if to make that play, you really need a hard read on your opponent's hand that there's no swipe there.
I would consider taking the risk here. Obviously, it's a little bit hard to say because we do see that there is no swipe available. So like cashing in on the Knife Juggler in a way would be okay. Just going to play the Infested Wolf, can't blame him for it. Perfectly on curve, uses all of his mana, and he isn't really weak to anything in particular with this line. Azure Drake from the top. So with the Moonfire, if he wanted to go for it, he could play the Drake and Moonfire off the 3-2, but with the Malygos in hand for next turn, you might also want to kind of save the Moonfire.
I feel like the tempo on the board is more important this turn, though, because it doesn't seem like there's going to be high priority Malygos targets for next turn to really shoot with that Moonfire, so I kind of like it. Just starting with Drake and see where you stand with the option of using that Moonfire, take out the 3-2 if you need to.
The Nourish is also an option because because that would draw him 3 extra cards, so chances to pick up Swipe would really increase by a lot. So with 9 mana next turn and the Drake still available, he would be able to go something like a Azure Drake into a Spell Power Swipe and the Moonfire. But Drake getting an extra body on the board, it's quite important this early on.
Spare Drake.
Yeah, just gonna Moonfire off the 3-2.
Yeah, and I guess doing it this way round as well, you still have the Nourish available for next turn, and there's a Drake on the board that's protected behind a Taunt.
Yep.
So next turn you can still do it the other way around, just Nourish into the swipe. Maybe your Drake still sticks around because it's quite well protected on the board. But yeah, I like the development high tempo play here from Nicslay because tempo is the one thing that he's going to lose to this game. It's just it's not like he's going to get outvalued. The more turns he gets to use all that excess mana that he has, the more of an advantage he'll gain. So I just like him trying the best he can just not to lose the board right now.
All right, Georgec using his skill command now to finish off the Ancient of War. Doesn't overkill it at all, dealing that perfect 5 that it had. And getting a little bit of trades, playing around that. Like you don't want to leave up a spell power, so playing around take the spell power swipe a tiny bit. And then Nicslay here. I mean, we know the Malygos would have got fine, but do you risk it here?
He knows as of 2 or 3 turns ago there was no Deadly Shot in hand, right? Because of the Ancient of War, and some of the cards that have been drawn since then, the Infested Wolf, for example, have been played from the right-hand side of the hand. So there's actually a very limited range of cards in Georgec's hand that could possibly be Deadly Shot. So yeah, I think with the Nourish in hand as well to potentially pick you up spell damage next turn, and the Moonglade Portal to block off the idea of ignore Malygos, go face, try and kill you. I think just dropping Mali here is perfectly fine.
Yeah, just do it. And next turn, Nourish for the swipe. Malygos likely to stay alive. That crazy 9 damage to single target and 6 collateral Malygos is something that usually wins the game when you get to pull it off.
Yeah, it doesn't even necessarily have to be swipe. There's a lot of removal left in the deck. You know, Living Roots have not been used yet. Wraths have not been used yet. There's a second Moonfire. You know, various combinations of those cards off the natural draw, and the Nourish could clean up any board pretty effectively as well. And Unleash is such a whiff. No high mains for George. No real power minions so far. Just one Infested Wolf is really like the biggest thing he's been able to drop on the board this game.
Unleash a Hound for 3 mana. That's no good. If you're Georgec, you probably just have to go all in here with the other minions. Just play the Juggler, play the Horse Rider, play the Firebat, and hope for the best. It is a desperation play for sure, but there's not really many other options. How can he play half of his hand? Could he maybe play just the Horse Rider, Hero Power?
Horse Rider, Fiery Bat, Hero Power, yeah, I mean... Definitely squeaking some value out of the hero power at this point does seem appealing because it looks like you are in face hunter mode at this point. It doesn't really look like you're winning in value on the board if this Malygos is able to clear you up. So yeah, I like this line. It's a good halfway line. It's, as I said, it's rationing damage in a face hunter style, just making sure you squeeze in that hero power every turn.
Yeah, but Nicslay here with so many options. Likely to see the Nourish to kick things off. Moonglade Portal into Mire Keeper for a minion. I guess that's fine too, but you really want to milk that Malygos right now. Just try to find some spells to go with it.
So there is, what, 2, 4, 7, 8, 9, 11 damage minimum staring you back, including the hero power from the Hunter. So if you were to nourish and whiff, how big of a mess are you in? It's not huge, right? You've already seen 1 kill command, 1 quick shot being used. So
yeah,
I think it's a play with a lot of upside that doesn't lose the game on the spot too often. So
it should be fine.
Yeah.
So you can still do the Moonclad Portal heal next. And the worst that could happen is maybe like a bow and like quick shot. Bow, quick shot. Hero power is 8 from the hand, and there would be additional 7 on the board, so he should still be fine. It will still be 1 off lethal as long as the fiery bat misses. Oh, he's kind of going for the safe play here.
Sure.
I guess that's pretty good.
I mean, it doesn't really have a great target to trade into right now. I guess it can take the fiery bat off the board, save some health on the Malagos that way, but it's not like there's a big chunky minion on the board like an Azure Drake or something that can trade into perfectly, and just pushes damage to the face with the Malagos here. And this is a little bit of a timid line, but suddenly how wide he's gone makes that decision from Georgec to hold on to the Juggler Unleash combo a very big deal.
So good, like the Georgec played us so well. I don't know if he got maybe a little bit lucky that his opponent happened to go that wide, but it was a great call to hold down to the Juggler. It's going to pay off here.
So trade 1 of the 1/1s into the 3/3, 1 into the 4/2, and then Juggler Unleash, I believe, is the correct sequencing.
Yep, just go for that, and now once there's enough room for all those 4 wolves, just go for it, see where the juggles land, and then potentially be trading off the infested wolf for some other juggles, but it's also tempting to just go face with the 3 damage minion and the horse rider. Just leave off the Malagos. I mean, the Malagos cannot be removed still.
Right. And I think, yeah, because he can so efficiently clear the other 2 minions anyway, there's no reason to pop the wolf here. You might as well just push the 3 to face. And
oh, yeah.
I totally like this. And I'm sure we'll see hero power come out over Argent Squire here as well. Yes, we do. So Georgec is setting up a lethal push for himself. And honestly, Nicslay now just finds himself back in the same situation as he was last turn. And he hasn't really achieved anything in the meantime. So you do have to question whether or not he was supposed to nourish on the previous turn.
It feels like he really got punished for it. But that's a lot of damage, but the problem is that the Hunter is still at 25, so the Moonfire and the Living Roots, they're actually not doing all that much, and now this is a scary situation. You're down at 12, your opponent has a huge board. Granted, the minions are fairly small, but there's multiple, and you don't have any AoE available. This is certainly tough. Do you just go for a Drake and kill off the Juggler?
That would leave you facing 7, so you would be dead to kill command, you'd be dead to quick shot, you'd be dead to a lot of stuff. You'd be dead to Eagle Horn Bow.
This is rough. He could Moonfire off the Juggler maybe. Everything else, the Malagos is just not finding any more trades. I like the card draw here. Then choose between the Moonfire on the Juggler or just use the Malagos to remove it.
Well, Growth is another whiff, so even if he does survive here, he's still not found that swipe that he's going to need to get himself back on the board. Knife Juggler is a whiff for George, though. That doesn't help him push, and every turn Nicslay can stay alive here. It's tilting ever so slowly back in his favor, but Georgec is still heavily favored overall.
He is, but now this is a tough decision for Georgec, because there might be the swipe coming from the top, and no lethal available, so with the Moonfire, Living Roots, and potentially the swipe, Nicslay might be able to take this if his board stays, if Nixlay's board stays intact.
So if he kills just the Azure Drake here, then if swipe is drawn, that'll be 15 damage from the spell damage. It'll be 4, 6, 7 from the spells. That's 22, 26. So if swipe is lethal, even if he kills the Azure Drake with Nixlay's hand.
Yep. Georgec doesn't have the information though that there's both Moonfire and the Living Roots in the hand. He can kind of figure it out that there's probably no swipe unless it was drawn from the Azure Drake, because it would have been casted. So there's only like that one extra draw. That could be the swipe, but that's also the top deck. I really like trading here, because you know that you're likely to find the lethal next turn anyway, so it kind of improves his own chance to survive.
Yep, definitely seems legitimate. So this draw for Nicslay is huge! That swipe is lethal damage, 15 in spells, plus another, 7 from the actual damage of the spells themselves, plus the Malagos damage. That looks pretty lethal to me.
Certainly is. And what a close game.
Yeah, down to the wire. Nicslay, honestly, with a questionable decision, just delaying that Nourish for the extra turn, but you know, deck management, if you like, it allowed him to draw to the card he needed on the exact turn he needed it, so worked out for him in the end. We are 1-0 in this series. Currently, Nicslay is up, having won with his Malagos Druid, and Georgec is starting to stare a pretty terrifying prospect in the face, and that's after coming so close so many times over the course of the year, just falling short of that BlizzCon qualification. How devastating would that be to someone who has been closer than anyone who has not yet qualified?
Well, at least he has a lot of experience playing at these type of events, but he has to be getting a little bit frustrated potentially. Let's just hope that it doesn't show in the gameplay.
So it looks like Georgec is going to fall back on this tried and tested Freeze Mage for him. I think he has relied on Freeze Mage in every single appearance that he's had in HCT events. And Nicslay busting out a pretty unique-looking mid-range hunter. And as Firebat pointed out in the introduction to this series, mid-range hunter is very effective when it comes to beating up on Freeze Mages.
Yeah, and Terry looking at the Desert Camel, it's something that we saw a few months ago quite frequently, but lately it has gotten a little bit less popular. But Nicslay coming in with a solid strategy, banning his opponent's Shaman. Shaman usually has a lot of one-drops that can kind of backfire with the Desert Camel. This Freeze Mage that Georgec is running, not a single one-mana cost minion in the deck, so only Nicslay will be getting a minion from the Camel once it hits the board. I would expect him to keep it, and yeah, it does.
Yeah, smart call, honestly, on the deck building from Nicslay, because not too much Zoo expected. A lot of people think Zoo is fairly weak at the moment, so if you're able to ban one of the classes with powerful one-drops, then you're probably not expecting to come up against another one, and Nicslay choosing to go back to the Camel. But beyond that, it's not just Camel that's in this deck. He's also packing N'Zoth the Corruptor at the top of his curve in his Hunter deck.
It is so weird. It's just, we don't see Camel Hunter that often, and we don't see N'Zoth Hunter. And he packed it all into the same deck. But I'm a huge fan of the Camel tech for this, considering his strategy. Like you mentioned, Zoo Warlock not that popular. Camel can be bad there. If his strategy is to ban Shaman, what does it leave? Tempo Mage has mana worms, I suppose, but Tempo Mage also like
one Tempo Mage in this tournament, so yeah.
So those Camels are gonna work out so well. And he draws his Fire, but that is actually a good draw. He wanted it on turn 1, obviously, but this Fire Bat draw guarantees that the Desert Camel is going to get him a Qualdir, since he's playing 2 Qualdirs and only 1 Fire Bat.
Boom. That is 12 stats on turn 3. Tuskar Totemic, eat your heart out. This Camel always summons Totem Golems, my friend.
Yeah, Nicslay just here like hoping not to draw the last Qualdir. That would be a disaster.
He's got it. I mean, this is actually just dreamland for this deck. This start, both Camels into the additional 2/4s. As you said, drawing that Fiery Bat was just enormous in terms of perfecting the curve. And that is a lot of 2/4s that Freeze Mage is having to deal with very early on here, and almost a guaranteed Houndmaster bank here if Georgec doesn't choose to spend an entire turn just Frostbolt ping on a Camel.
Yeah, not only is Nicslay getting those awesome 2/4s from his deck, but he's also thinning his deck at the same time, so all the future draws will have higher quality because he won't be drawing any more 1-drops, so it will always be at least a 2-drop or a kill command or some kind of big minion.
Yep, so he can push 8 damage this turn, and I'm certain that's the play. Like, maybe there is a thought in the back of his mind saying, do I want to commit this heavily into the Frostnova Doomsayer turn? But all of these minions have essentially got their value at this point in this matchup, and the value in this matchup is just connecting with face. So even if this board was to get Frostnova Doomsayered away, you know, your Houndmaster has still essentially done charge damage anyway, so you're not too sad about seeing it go away.
Turn 4, and he has 12 power on the board. Georgec really needed a Doomsayer here. That would have given him a good chance to maybe take it if Nicslay was unable to deal with it. And as we can see, Nicslay would not have had a way to remove it without trying to maybe roll a halfer from the Animal Companion to combo it with a quick shot. And Georgec, it's so early for the Frost Nova. You want to negate the 12, but you probably have to just go for the barrier unless you hope in the top deck another Nova on the next turn. But this is miserable if you Georgec.
It really is. He's trying to find a way to stall out this turn without actually going for a board freeze here. And I guess just using the double removal turn here, drew into that Roaring Torch very early off the early Forgotten Torch and just takes as much damage off the board as he can, stalls out his resources for a little bit longer. I think this deck in particular with the Evolved Kobold, when you are learning to play this deck, every single player that I've seen try and learn this deck is amazed at how much damage they can spend on minions and still have enough to push for the win at the end. So Georgec correctly recognizing he has damage to spare.
Yep. Nicslay going for the Animal Companion here. Gets the worst one. The other one, I think that's the worst one here, because even Leok would have let him push 2 immediate damage. I would like to see the Kindly Grandmother here to maybe kind of counter the potential Blizzard a little bit, to have that 3-2 afterwards. Blizzard is a very likely turn 6. Georgec does not have it, so it would have been fine to maybe just Hero Power or Huge Toad, but the Kindly Grandmother seems like the safest play.
Yeah, the weird thing, you know, I've seen this happen. If you can manipulate the numbers exactly with Huge Toad, it can fill that Leponome role where, you know, you can kill them through an Ice Block on their own turn, like punish them for dropping Doomsayer.
Yeah.
So Huge Toad is potentially something you can hold onto in your hand for that purpose, but it does rely on very, very specific manipulation of the numbers to pop them at 1.
Certainly. Kill command from the top. This is just... I mean, he would love to have a Highman, but I think Nicslay has everything he needs to take the game before Alexstrasza hits the board, or just push through it. Force a defensive Alexstrasza. Going for face here. It has 9 power on the board right now. Let's see how much he wants to commit here. He knows that Georgec is very likely to have to start freezing now. Georgec does play 1 Flame Strike, so that's another consideration for Nicslay. Maybe do you want to play a little bit around it? Like Fiery Bat would be something that he could maybe hold in his hand to enable the kill command. I think it will also be fine to just kill command here, maybe go for the Hero Power.
I mean, yeah, you know where that kill command is going.
Yeah,
right?
it's going phase.
It's not being used to, you know, take out a Doomsayer at this point. I don't think there's just too much damage to invest, especially when you have that deadly shot in your hand already. Same thing with Alexstrasza. If the game progresses to the point where Alex comes down, you have the deadly shot anyway. So I think that kill command is just always going downtown at Jaina's face, so there's no real reason not to do it now.
No, not in this spot, because the Alexstrasza is still 2 turns away. Yep. Sometimes if you know that your opponent is might have an Alexstrasza coming soon, maybe you want to hold the kill command and use it after the Alexstrasza, but this is not one of those times.
There is the Doomsayer, which means the Nova Doomsayer combination is now available to George. This is the first real powerful board freeze that he's had available to him. Hasn't drawn his Blizzards, hasn't drawn his AoE Flame Strike either, so really been lacking what he needed to be able to answer this quick, aggressive board state from Nicslay. And Nicslay really being rewarded here for recognizing the power in Camel Hunter, which is not a deck that we've seen.
I'm honestly
for a long
impressed.
time.
Like I wasn't expecting anybody to be playing the Camel Hunter, but it's working so well. We have to also like recognize that he did get a very good draw, definitely above average draw, but still. Great meta call, even with just 1 Camel, I think he would have been well positioned.
So, now then,
whoa.
There is a Novice Engineer on the board, which creates a little bit of havoc with the deadly shot in Nixlay's hand. But at this point, if he lets the Doomsayer go off, he still gets 1 extra damage from the Fiery Bat. He still maintains a 3-2 on the board. He still gets to press Hero Power, and he still has a quick shot in his hand. So does he even need to defend his board at this point? Can he just let it happen, push for damage?
The board is pretty valuable, and there's a lot of stuff in there, and Flame Strike is only played as one-off in Georgec's deck. Quick shot on the 1-1, then deadly shot, Hero Power, yeah, that would secure keeping the board alive. Is it worth it? I think it is.
It feels so miserable though.
It
that quick shot is such a great tool to push through, but I mean, essentially what this means is that Nicslay is valuing this board to stick around, and I think he's entitled to do that based on what Georgec has shown him so far. Georgec has shown him that he has an answer-light hand. So Nicslay can read from that Georgec's hand is full of aggressive cards and burst damage, potentially Alexstrasza. So Nicslay needs to make sure Georgec is constantly occupied with a board in front of him.
Yeah, exactly. Even if there was that Flame Strike which clears the board, that would be all 7, well, he has 8 mana, but that would take the entire turn from Georgec. Right. So by keeping the board alive, it kind of like commits Georgec into having a reactive play instead of maybe developing the ice block on the board. or drawing more cards. So here now, Georgec, I don't really see a way out. He can ice block here to keep himself alive for one more turn, but
yeah, can he ever find a turn without the block though? That's quite often in these situations, that's quite often like the point where you can break it in your favor, but I just don't see it with any consistency. Fireball, Ice Lance and Ping would be the best he can do.
Double Ice Lance to preserve the block. I think that's actually the winning play. How do you make that call? Because if there's no damage, he's actually freezing 2 minions. I love it. This is absolutely amazing play from Georgec. Just using those, he knows that if the ice block stays intact, he can Alexstrasza his opponent and then potentially draw a Frostbolt to have little Nicslay getting that extra damage. So with that Houndmaster, he will be able to pop the ice block this turn, which is huge.
And it wouldn't have made a difference, right? I'm just thinking Georgec pinged face there instead of pinging off the Fiery Bat, which means he takes 2 damage this turn instead of the 1 he would have taken from the Death Rattle. So it wouldn't have made a difference with this Houndmaster draw, but still an interesting choice considering that it looks like, you know, offensive Alexstrasza is the only win condition here.
Yeah.
So interesting why he decided to ping face there. But Nicslay picking up the Houndmaster, huge draw to be able to deny this free turn to Georgec that he played for. But honestly, well played to Georgec for identifying the out and giving himself maximum chance to win.
Yeah, this is probably going to be a checkmate right here, though. I can't imagine a card in Georgec's deck that would really win the game from him. He can draw a second ice block. Maybe he can find like Arcane Intellect first, Arcane Intellect into an ice block, and something. That's
a 3-mana Reno Jackson. Yeah, it's not looking pretty. Blizzard kills him, so he might as well use the ping on his own face. And you can see there, even if he did manage to stall, the Fiery Bat, the huge Toad in hand, these are all things that were going to end the game with the Death Rattles anyway, because he did manage to pop at 1. So Freeze Mage again, you know, this was the story of the Grand Finals that we saw from George in the Summer Championship, where Freeze Mage really put him really far behind early on, and now it looks like George is getting himself into a bit of a spot again with his continued trust in that Freeze Mage deck.
Those camels so huge, getting those extra qualities, the 2 fours, drawing the Fiery Bat, only choosing to play 1, that's also a very strong decision, because then that increases the chance of pulling out the qualities instead of the Fiery Bat. Just a really well played game from Nicslay and a great deck choice.
It gives you a really consistent mulligan, right? Because if you keep that 1 Fiery Bat in your hand, then suddenly you know your odds of like a really powerful camel play are just so huge. But yeah, Georgec still having his full lineup left available for him to win with. But for Nicslay, he has got that mid-range Shaman and his Miracle Rogue available for him. How do those 2 decks line up against what Georgec has left?
Well, the Rogue is definitely going to struggle against the Mage. So I would expect Georgec to be able to beat the Rogue. I think that's what it's mostly going to come down to, like how many times can Georgec beat the Rogue. I would expect Nixlay's Shaman to find its win at some point, but maybe the Rogue from Nicslay will crumble and Georgec will be able to get multiple wins against that.
Yeah, I mean, Georgec will certainly be hoping so. He's gone with the Freeze Mage here, and there are 2 matchups remaining that are very powerful for Freeze Mage. Freeze Mage preying on these mid-range Shamans that have risen in popularity since the nerf to some of the more aggressive Shaman cards. One of the big things that has really caused, you know, Freeze Mage to come back into prominence. You know, suddenly laughing is a happy man with an 80% win rate again because of all these mid-range Shamans on the ladder. So Georgec picking up the early Doomsayer and a Frostbolt as well as some early cycles. So this is a strong-looking hand to counteract what Shaman wants to do.
Yep, Nicslay does have some good cards against it. For example, he has a Ragnar's Firelord in his deck, which generally is extremely powerful against the Freeze Mage. It's one of those things that you can't freeze. On turn 8, the Freeze Mage will be freezing unless he's already like killing you or something, but normally that's one of those turns where you're freezing. But Ragnaros is pretty much just charging 8 damage effectively because there's not that many minions on the board, and freezing it doesn't really do anything, so it's a great card to have. Nicslay also playing 1 copy of Bloodlust, so he might be, there we see it in his hand right now, so he might be able to get a lot of damage in early on with that if he manages to, let's say, get a board of 3 minions to not get frozen.
That was just a fascinating little moment there for Nicslay on turn 1. He obviously with no play to make on turn 1, he waited several seconds there before skipping turn, which we've seen many people do, but Nicslay actually just sat there with his eyes closed for a moment there, just looking as if he was trying to compose himself in this high-pressure situation.
Yep. Haven't seen any nervous plays from him, at least. I think he's playing really well. Georgec just dropping that Doomsayer here. He knows that Nicslay is running 2 copies of Hex, so keeping the Doomsayer for the Nova Doomsayer combination is very unreliable. Yep. Also, worth pointing out that he didn't really have another play to do there. Like pointing out the barrier doesn't really get you anywhere, or so.
Yeah, Novice Engineer picked up now for following turns if he wants to cycle some more, and Nicslay not really looking at the board development plays that he would want at this point in time. You know, Manatide Totem is okay to be kind of irritating in the mid-game against Freeze Mage and potentially draw some more resources, but not doing anything to mount the pressure here, and this is the problem that mid-range Shaman can often have, which is just not being aggressive enough early enough to push through.
Yeah, to be fair, the decklist is not running a single 4 mana card, so it's gonna be expected that the turn 4 might not be that spectacular. Oh, just gonna go for the Maelstrom Portal, throwing it away, and recognize that it's not that great of a card, so he's using it to play a 2 mana 1/1. Well, could have been Tunnel Jock.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen some 10 mana 2/1s in this tournament so far, so 2 mana 1/1 not looking too bad, but yeah, he needed some sort of board presence. He wants something to be able to push through Flame Tongue damage on a following turn, and also Maelstrom Portal can actually be to your detriment to use in some situations if, say, there's an Acolyte of Pain on the board, so it's not necessarily something you can get value out of against Freeze Mage.
Yeah, I think that was a good play from Nicslay, trying to get 2 minions on the board. I mean, he did get 2 minions, but 2 minions to stick on the board. Unfortunately, that will not happen because that could be pinged off. But Flame Tongue, Mana Tide, pretty solid for turn 5. Blood Mage sounds okay, so Georgec just wants to get his cycle. Not trying to get more value out of his Blood Mage, but this is likely to be another Maelstrom Portal now from Nicslay.
Yeah, Maelstrom Portal looks pretty attractive in this situation, but Nicslay has to then make the decision of whether he wants the mana-efficient and resource-heavy play of the Manatide Totem, or whether he wants to start pushing damage with the Flame Tongue Totem to back that up. But again, I think Portal will be used this turn purely for the reasons we talked about before. It's a difficult card to use in this matchup, and this is about as good as it's going to get.
Yeah, it's tempting to try to get the Mana Tide on the board, but then those 1/1s are... The Flame Tongue is happening no matter what. I don't think there's any question about it. That you want to get the damage in, but so the card draw from Mana Tide would be tempting too, but yeah. I like the Maelstrom here. Like, you're never gonna get to use it better. And pushes 5 damage here. A little bit unfortunate that he can't choose the positioning on the Maelstrom Portal minion. It always spawns to the right side. He would have loved to have it on the left side because the 3/1 might not survive. Barrier, ping off the 3/1. Pretty solid play. Only going to be 4 power on the board from Nicslay, and this slow start from Nicslay, it's going to be really tough for him to win the game.
Yeah, the slow start combined with the Doomsayer draw from Georgec has meant that Nicslay has essentially started his game on turn 4 here, which is playing right into the Freeze Mage's hand. And Georgec here has all the tools that he didn't have in the last game against the mid-range Hunter, all those mid-game board freezes that he needs to buy time, and plenty of damage building up as well behind the Alexstrasza Fireball and an Ice Lance already in hand.
Yeah, I feel like in order for Nicslay to win the game, Georgec needs to drop the ball real bad and maybe let Nicslay Bloodlust next turn if Georgec draws, let's say, another barrier. Excuse me, I only place 1 barrier. If he draws like a card draw, goes for the Ice Block and another card draw, or like or some kind of play that does not involve freezing, because then Nicslay would get all that value from the Bloodlust. Georgec, as long as he freezes, he'll be good.
Indeed, and I'm sure there will be a freeze coming out this turn, because even if Georgec isn't planning around specifically Bloodlust, it's just the Thunderbluff turn, right? You do not want all these totems attacking with initiative from the Thunderbluff Valiant, so Georgec will be a pretty catastrophic mistake for him to make there if he didn't choose to freeze the board.
Yeah, but Georgec, experienced Freeze Mage player, he knows what he's doing, not taking any chances there. Also, his hand is stacked with freeze. He has a second Blizzard and a Frost Nova, so very safe to just use it there. Sometimes we see players, when they only have, let's say, 1 freezing card in their hand, kind of try to save it as much as they can, but this is not one of those times. Just gonna use it, and the Mana Tide, yeah, does survive, but it's not that big of a deal. Nixlay's card draw, I don't think it's a huge deal. I don't think Georgec cares too much about the Mana Tide. In many matchups, the Mana Tide is one of the higher priority targets to remove. You know that your opponent getting free cards. You're gonna lose the value game, but this is not really going to be a value game.
Certainly is, especially looking at Georgec's hand already. All he really needs to do is stall another couple of turns here, and he just has that big offensive swing with Alexstrasza. And against Shaman, a class that really does not heal, apart from the extreme control decks that start packing in Healing Wave, then the offensive Alexstrasza can pretty much just be a game lockout if you have the ice block protected behind it already.
Yeah, another freeze coming in here. I think it's just choose to do whatever. This might be the ice block turn. Could the Blizzard be better? I guess the Nova is fine. Just go for that and the ice block. He would also maybe consider playing like a loot hoarder. The Arcane Intellect doesn't work because then he would overdraw his next beginning of the turn card.
Would, yeah. He can choose to Blizzard this turn and then go Nova, block, Loot Hoarder the next turn, but then your coin is kind of stranded. You know, your coin isn't really doing anything at that point. So, yeah, I don't mind this play at all. Could have even chosen to coin out the Loot Hoarder here, but honestly, this gives him just the coin Alexstrasza option next turn if he picks up the damage that he needs to push through. So,
now, Nicslay, if he was to draw his Ragnaros this turn, it would have been huge.
That's true.
Because no minions are getting through at this point until it's going to be too late, but the Rag would have been an out for him, dealing that 8 immediate damage, potentially another 8 on the following turn. Maybe with something like a Spirit Claw from the top and combining that with Spell Power.
I guess that is actually the only concern about Georgec choosing to leave the Mana Tide up this game, is that, you know, anytime you're Freeze Mage and you're playing against a deck that has Ragnaros in it, Ragnaros is just so much better than any other card in their deck against you that sometimes you feel like you want to limit their card draw, but Georgec didn't really have too much of an option to kill it. Like, the board freezes were just too efficient for him this game to turn down. And there was one card late!
Wow. That's unfortunate.
What a difference a card makes, Savitz. If that was one card higher up in the deck, and this could have been a very different story, but now George just has all the time in the world going with the Blizzard into Loot Hoarder line this turn.
It's still like, it's not even that good, because
now it's just a bad rag, yeah.
Now the Loot Hoarder is kind of ruining it, and it's too late. Even if it hits face twice, it might still not be enough. There's that ice block. There's a second ice block in Georgec's hand. Has a bunch of burn.
Yeah, there actually isn't a good outcome for the Ragnaros here. In this specific situation, because even if the Rag hits face still, then offensive Alexstrasza comes down, and the Loot Hoarder connecting for the extra 2 actually just gives Georgec auto, because he has the 13 damage in hand to follow it up. So
that is true. So if you Nicslay here...
Oh, sorry, that's a Forgotten Torch in hand. That's not the Roaring Torch. Yeah, never mind. So not quite that much damage, but still, the extra 2 being pushed from the Loot Hoarder, if it lives, is still a big deal after Alex comes down.
Looks like Nicslay maybe going for a Mana Tide here. What would be a great draw from him? I guess Spirit Claws maybe would help him push a little bit of damage, but there's, like you said earlier, there's no healing in that list. Nicslay choosing just to Hex the Loot Hoarder and hope that the Freeze Mage is kind of gonna defeat itself at this point by not drawing the important cards. Maybe if there was no Alexstrasza in Georgec's hand just yet, he would be okay, and cutting the extra draw from the Loot Hoarder would kind of like delay the Alexstrasza for an additional turn to give him a chance. But there's the Alex, and he could just go for it here, honestly. I think he'll be fine. He'll have next turn to maybe play the second ice block if the first one somehow got popped.
Yeah, so he doesn't have the damage in his hand right now, but his chance to draw it is so high percentage because... Well, so first off, his block has to go down immediately, which is likely. There's 14 damage in play, plus another 6 from the Thunder Bluff. So
maybe drawing is better, and just like torch the Totem Golem. Because if you torch the Totem Golem, there's almost no way for Nicslay to pop the block. I think, because 25 HP, Bloodlust, Lightning Bolt, it's pretty tough, so just going for maybe like Arcane Intellect, Forgotten Torch.
So I don't mind this. Like, Georgec will have calculated his percentages here, and, you know, you can basically do this in the other order now, which is to say, next turn I can do some combination of Arcane Intellect plus Acolyte draws, plus play the second Ice Block if necessary, and then after that, you know, I still have draws available to me the next turn after my second block goes down. So you have such a high percentage chance of drawing additional damage from your deck at this point that I'm sure Georgec has calculated his outs. He knows the exact number of cards left and the exact contents of his deck and all kinds of things that we haven't been keeping perfect track of. So I'm sure he knows the right line here.
There's so many cards he can draw. It's incredible. He did use like one Frostbolt on an early turn, I believe. I'm actually not even sure if he did. But in any case, Arcane Intellect with that Ice Block, or maybe Torching first, torching his opponent first to increase the chance of picking up the Roaring Torch with Arcane Intellect. Yeah, Nicslay popping the block here, dealing with Alexstrasza. What is the most efficient way to do this? So Bloodlust, I believe, is required to get this all done. Oh man.
If you Bloodlust, you can also Hero Power and you can also Hex, but that's like, you don't actually need all that damage to be able to push through, so he might be able to preserve the Hex here. I think this might be a situation from Nicslay where he just hasn't really seen anything better, so he's just gone for the guaranteed option ahead of him just to make sure he gets something effective done, but definitely some better options that turn in terms of popping the block more efficiently. It was a pop at 6, there was a Hex used that didn't necessarily have to be used. So yeah, Nicslay, obviously, as you can see on his face, not particularly happy with the way that turn was played out, but it probably ends up being a formality based on Georgec's hand anyway.
Pretty much. Georgec can just choose how to do it. I would like to see the Torch first, then go for the Arcane Intellect, then for the Ice Block, improving his chance to pick up the Roaring Torch.
Yep. If he draws a 2-mana card draw at that point as well, he can still coin it out. He can have an 11-mana turn this turn due to holding the coin. So.
Alright, so he's going for the Ice Block first.
It's getting played this turn regardless, I can tell you that much. It looks like he's just going to commit the burn right now and just rely on draw next turn. So he's pushing through, setting him to 6, and this means next turn he can Arcane Intellect. If Arcane Intellect whiffs, he will have 7 mana available to him, which means he can't then Acolyte and ping afterwards to try and find the Fireball.
A little bit surprised by that, but it should be fine.
Actually, no, he can still Acolyte, ping, and pick up the Roaring Torch that he's just put in the deck and then coin that out. So he does, yeah, he has a lot of outs the next turn.
Yeah, no real, like, no mistakes here. I think that the one mistake that he could have done if he wasn't Georgec, if he was a little bit less experienced player, was to maybe use the card draw first and then go for the Torch, and that would kind of reduce his chances of picking up the extra burn. But are there more? There we go.
Frostbolt will do it. So will Evolved Kobold. George loves this card. He's going to bring him out on the board on any given opportunity. Frostbolt Ice Lance, massive overkill. Could have just used the ping. But Georgec does get the Freeze Mage shaped monkey off his back. He gets that win under his belt. So he now has his Malygos Druid, his Miracle Rogue, and his mid-range Hunter left to win with after having his Shaman banned. So as you said, the Rogue here is potentially a big deal. There's a lot of strong matchups for Georgec potentially going into that Rogue. So the Rogue could definitely be a key point. The Shaman that we just saw fail, you would expect to be able to pick up a win at some point. Still such a powerful deck in the format, even after having some of its core cards nerfed. Like, what do we have to do to this class, Savitz, to make it not terrorize us?
I don't know. There's a lot of variety between the deck list, but it feels like you can just like put 25 cards in and just autofill and you'll do fine.
True. Since we have now categorically solved Yogg-Saron based on the evidence of this tournament, then Shaman is just the next thing to check off the list, right?
Here we go, and Nicslay trying again with his Shaman. Georgec with his Hunter that let him down a little bit earlier. In this matchup, just choosing to throw away the Barnes and the Juggler. Recognize the Juggler probably better later and wants to have a different one 2-drop for his turn 2.
Yeah, he's just looking for sticky tools early to be able to contest the board. Argent Squires, Kindly Grandmothers, that kind of thing. Shaman just so much more efficient in the early game now with the addition of the Spirit Claws, the Maelstrom Portal, plus the incredible early game package that they already have with the power minions. So Georgec knows he needs something pretty special here to be able to hang with the early game of the Shaman.
Certainly does. Well, he threw away one juggler and he got another one to replace it. I mean, it's not the worst thing to have. And Nicslay, oof, that's a little bit of a clunky hand right now. He doesn't really have much to do. Like Spirit Claws for 1, yeah, that's great, but turn 2 and 4 are looking like hero power as it is.
And Nicslay, again, I'm not sure how much of this is considering his options and how much is just the ritual that he's seemed to go through every game so far, which is just taking a moment at turn 1 just to compose himself, making sure his head's in the right place. Obviously, he knows how much this means to him because as we've pointed out, this is not a guy that's really built a following for himself over the course of the year like some of the players who appeared in Winter did. This is a guy where, you know, this chance to qualify for BlizzCon is potentially just straight up career defining for him. This could be make or break for his entire Hearthstone career right here.
Absolutely, and really rough draw from Nicslay there. Getting a second Azure Drake and now a Bloodlust. Georgec, meanwhile, got a beast for turn 2, so now the coined Houndmaster is looking quite amazing, honestly.
It really is, yeah. Coining Houndmaster against Feral Spirits like this is so powerful because your opponent is overloaded, so they struggle to deal with the huge board state that you've made, and you can just start picking apart their board piece by piece with the powerful minions that you've been able to drop down. So such a huge advantage, but the combination of the Spirit Claws and the Spirit Wolf here can tidy up nicely, and the Totem Golem draw is at least huge because that now allows him to just contest the board, the Houndmaster into the 3-4.
Yeah, Flame Tongue would have been full clear for Nicslay by using the weapon as well.
That's true.
No Flame Tongue available, however. The Totem Golem looks great, except for the fact that he really wants to play an Azure Drake next turn. I do still think that he has to play it. I mean, how do you hero power? You just fall so far behind.
Yeah, how important is the Drake next turn when he's going to use his last Spirit Claw charge this turn, right? So it's not like he's going to get the spell power tempo out of it, the spell damage tempo, sorry. So yeah, I think the pressing issue of just not having that Houndmaster hit you in the face for 8 damage is more realistic than thinking you get to develop a Drake next turn.
Yeah, he does have the Feral Spirits for his next turn, so at least there will be something to play. So it's not all that bad, but those Drakes are just getting so late. Okay, let's see, I would expect him to trade for the 3-2 as well, remove that beast. Yes, he does. So now that kill command in Georgec's hand is not going to be able to remove that Totem Golem because it only deals 3 damage.
Yeah, no minion here either to activate the Knife Juggler, nothing he can play with it to try and snipe out that 0-1 totem, give Georgec some more free options with where to send his 4-3 attack. So probably just going with the initiative play here of the second Animal Companion. Oh no, he's going to go with the Houndmaster because this fits with his curve better for next turn.
I think that's the thing he wants to do here. That's why the Houndmaster, because for next turn he will be able to play the Knife Juggler and 3-mana card of his choice. Most likely he wants to play the Animal Companion, but if he has to kill command, he will also be able to do that. So if he went for the Animal Companion here, it would not be mana efficient, and then the next turn would also not be all that mana efficient. And another unplayable card, and the 2-3 taunts just match up so poorly. That's such an awesome card for next turn, except that the only play he has available to him right now is an Overload card.
And I think this turn you actually cannot do it, right?
No,
because you give yourself the potential of actually whiffing an entire turn next turn based on your hand.
Nothing to play if you all over those for 2. Those Drakes will be blocked once again, and the Fire Elemental is also excellent against the 4G, so maybe just hero power trade for one of the Houndmasters. Hope that Georgec can't get too much other stuff on the board. What a miserable turn. So here is the problem with that one Overlord that he took from the Totem Golem. The Drake, yeah, maybe there's no Spirit Claws anymore, but it would have still been a 4-4.
It sure would, yeah. I mean, I guess he did have the Taunt Totem on the board, which prevented him from taking too much damage from the Houndmasters here, but yeah, Nickslay's just got to suck it up this turn and say, hey, all right, I'm passing my turn here.
He got a good totem. That's very good here. It's going to stop Georgec. Or is it?
Never mind. That Horse Rider is pushing 4 damage to face here because of its ability to take out the Taunt Totem. If he gets the knife to face as well, that'll be huge. Yep, gets it. So he's now ramping up the damage very, very quickly here with that Houndmaster. Connecting for 4. And yeah, looks like a pretty straightforward Fire Ellie turn this turn, although how scared is he of leaving up the Knife Juggler here?
I I guess it's not that bad. The Knife Juggler is the most effective with an Unleash the Hounds, and only the Fire Elemental will be on the board, so that's just 1 minion. Unleash not available. It's unlikely that Georgec would play 2 minions. I mean, that didn't make much sense. It would be it would be unlikely that that Georgec would have like a very strong Knife Juggler then.
Right. So this is a turn where you always need to consider your high main options against a class that is able to tempo swing against high main. You know, for like Rogue and Shaman primarily are the big two. You can actually get punished for playing one of the best cards in your deck. It's a weird situation, but sometimes the tempo swing that you will lose from getting a high main hexed is one of the only ways you'll lose the game, and this feels like potentially one of those situations. So I like this decision from George to bypass it for now.
I completely agree with you. I feel like playing the high main is the only way he can lose. Hex is Nickslay's opening to be able to maybe...
That's a Huffer. There it is. You saw the arrow come up before it was spawned. That is a Huffer pushing another 4 damage. Nicslay is just in a mess right now.
Yeah, he could go for the Drake here and hope to pick up one of his 2 Maelstrom portals to get the clear. But even if he gets it, he's down to 13. He's looking at a bow. Bow hero power puts him down to 8 next turn. Feral Spirits.
Need to go Drake here. He can totem Feral Spirits, Manatite. No, yeah. So totem Feral Spirits. Think from below, I guess, is the best he can do with his turn here.
I think that's still weak. Like, just opens him up to the Unleash as well.
It's true.
I feel like the Azure Drake and just hope for the Maelstrom portal is the only play that could maybe make him win the game. He's going for the mass taunts here, and there is no Unleash in Georgec's hand, so works out kind of okay.
There is a kill command though, so that is a clean answer to the 5/5, and there is a freshly nerfed, straight off the printing presses, 9 mana Call of the Wild, which is potentially going to be 1 mana too expensive, amazingly, to have too much of an impact on this game, but still, Georgec looking in a pretty comfortable position overall here. He can punch through these minions pretty nicely. Yeah. Still push 6 more damage with the hero power going in as well. So he is in a comfortable spot right now.
Nicslay doesn't really have many options there. Worth pointing out that Georgec choosing to clear that totem. As much as he wants to push the 2 extra damage, it's probably not worth the risk of a Flame Tongue trade. So this way he kind of gets to keep his juggler alive.
Sure. I guess the texture of his hand here means that he can afford to play a little bit safe now as well.
Yeah.
You know, if he allows Nicslay a couple more extra turns now, based on the fact that he just drew Call of the Wild, that's not the worst thing for him. So just reining back a little bit, just playing as safe as possible, trying to preserve his board. And Nicslay now, after overloading on the previous turn, doesn't even have the Drake Maelstrom Portal play available to him. So.
Even if he gets it now, it wouldn't be any good because he wouldn't be able to play it. So he can Drake and Lightning Bolt. Manatide, try to get a taunt totem, Lightning Bolt.
I mean, he needs to race, right? He cannot just sit back and, you know, he'll lose to hero power if he doesn't develop any power on the board this turn. So I think Drake and hero power is the only thing he's got. Maybe try and pick up Thing from Below on the next turn so that you can go face and just put up more taunts. So,
oh, there's the Lightning Storm. That would have been fine a little bit earlier, but now it's just too late.
Yeah, Nicslay it's looking a little bit stressed with the situation here. I think he knows that this one is slipping away from him. Direwolf Alpha allows him to push an extra 2 if he wants, but it looks like he's finally going to go with the high main play since he gets to do it without really sacrificing any damage on this turn. And he'll get the happy news that there is no Hex in sight. Never mind, I'm a liar, Savitz. There's a Hex right there. What am I talking about?
Not that it really matters too much. That Call of the Wild for next turn. It's going to be so powerful. Nicslay without any taunts right now. He could roll a taunt totem, I suppose, but even that is so weak. He's on a clock just from the hero power, from the hunter.
So he needs to trade into the 2/1 first, hex the high main, roll a taunt totem, have Call of the Wild come down next turn. Huffer goes into his taunt totem. He lightning storms to clear the board with the spell damage, and then still loses to Hunter hero power after all of that. So, yeah, he's in a mess.
Absolutely. He needs to get as many minions on the board, I believe, as possible. Just trying to get the Bloodlust Litter somehow for next turn. So he's taking doing the right play here, but he didn't get the get the taunt totem, so this game is just over.
Sure is. The Hex is going to come down, but it's not going to matter because guess what? Call of the Wild, even if it costs 9, still a pretty strong card. It still does 5 damage, all the same. Huffer's going to get in there, connect for 5, and Georgec from a early deficit is going to square up the series, and that is the most BM frog I've ever seen in my life. Nicslay starting to struggle with this Shaman deck just a little bit.
Yeah, I was calling it the Rogue might be the weak spot for Nicslay, but it has actually been that Shaman that has been struggling. We saw that pretty terrible draw from him there with the 2-pair early on, with the 2 Azure Drakes and 2 Feral Spirits, and I think that we kind of, in a way, seeing the Tusker Totemic being changed maybe affect things, because Feral Spirits was a card that wasn't being played before, and Tusker Totemic was a card that was providing that turn where you don't overload, and those Feral Spirits instead of the Tusker Totemics just kind of like made the curving out very weak for Nicslay.
That's a very good point. I've seen some people moving over to Argent Horse Riders in the build, you know, primarily as a tool to answer each other's spell damage totems in the mirror, so that they don't get so much advantage out of it. But more Shaman to come later. Right now we have a good old-fashioned Rogue off, and that is a lot of conceals hanging around right now.
Wait, what?
That's,
yeah, there's some
yeah, he swashbucklered into a South Sea Squid face. So yeah, when these rogue cards come up against each other and start stealing each other's class cards, some pretty nonsensical things can happen. But yeah, this might just come down to who gets to really stick one of those big conceals the fastest here. And Nicslay looks like he has the far superior hand for making that kind of play.
He certainly does, but if Georgec gets a minion to stick somehow and picks up a cold blood, he could make a lot of things happen with those double conceals.
Sure.
Getting multiple hits in with that cold blood. But Nicslay right now is so good. Like he gets all the plays available to him here. He could even he could just hero power too, honestly, and just go for next turn, maybe coin Deadly Poison, Van Cleave. Just keep that later on. He could just coin out the Edwin here, but I don't think that's very good, because then there's cards such as Shadow Strike that would just remove it, and then the following turns would not be that effective. Yeah, so saving the coin might be worth it.
Yeah, I agree. I think this turn is just a slow play with the hero power. His hand has so many options moving forward here that he can afford to just play for time right now. Georgec is the one that's going to have to push some initiative right now. And yeah, I mean, that is a pretty clunky hand. Just a big old pile of minions and a couple of conceals sat around. Georgec just reaches for one of his conceals there for a moment, just potentially trying to bluff the idea that it's something else, but there's not really a 1-mana card in his deck that he'd play in that situation, right? Does he play Deadly Poison in his list? He does. He plays one copy, right? Yeah, okay.
Deadly Poison. Yeah.
So potentially trying to bluff a Deadly Poison by picking up the 1-mana conceal for a second there.
Yeah. Doom Pillager is such a great card, but having 2 of those and the additional 4-drop in that South Sea Squid face, it's really hard to find time to play all of it. And the Drake too. Wow. But Nicslay, this is still a little bit of a weird turn. Because the Deadly Poison coin Edwin, yeah, it's powerful here, but what do you do next turn then?
Right.
How about questing coin Conceal? Next turn go for like Deadly Poison Edwin?
Yeah, then how big does your questing really get the next turn? It doesn't get huge, right? So this is the problem with this hand, is that there's a lot of powerful resources in the form of the coin and the conceal, etc. And there's a bunch of different minions that all want to use them, right? Like the Gadgetzan wants to use the conceal, it wants to use the coin. The Edwin and the questing both want to use those things as well. So Nicslay is having to decide how to ration out his resources here. Chooses to go with the Edwin Van Cleef nice and early here, just get a 6/6 on the board. As long as there is no sap, this is at least going to get some work done. Even Shadow Strike would mean that Georgec had to face tank 6 damage. So.
Yep, so that Van Cleef is going to be quite powerful, and with that Conceal, it's going to get 12 damage in if he wants to do it.
Yep.
Questing Adventure, sure. Add some more conceal value. I don't think you want to trade in the Tomb Pillager, because first of all it gives your opponent a coin, and second of all your Edwin would be down to just 1 health, so Fan of Knives would then clear it off. Conceal first, and then Assay Agent, like use the Conceal just to give the Assay a combo. That would be an option. Or he could attack face first with the Edwin, then go for the Conceal. Assay and use the dagger to maybe remove that.
That's not terrible. I mean, the questing conceal play is obviously the first thing that leaps out to me, but your hand is terrible for a concealed questing. Like, that thing is not getting big next turn based on your hand right now. But yeah, the conceal just to proc combo into SI7 agent play is definitely not the worst idea that I've ever heard, but looks like Nicslay is just going to put his faith in his deck to draw some cheap cards here and push through.
I was thinking, what if Georgec picked up a preparation there? It could have done so much damage, but I think you go for the Cold Blood Conceal and try to maybe find a sap for next turn to remove one of those threats.
Yep, Swashbuckler actually turns out to be the activator he needed. He couldn't make that Cold Blood Conceal play for full damage unless he picked up a cheaper card, but you know, he's drawn most of the most expensive cards, barring his Auctioneers in his deck, so
I feel like
pretty likely.
I feel like the Drake is just too slow here, and you gotta take a more aggressive line. Maybe hope to get a good card from that Swash.
Wow, this is taking Rogue loyalty to a new level. People say that, you know, Rogue loyalists really believe in Rogue, but Georgec is taking it to a new level, actually transforming into Valera before our eyes.
Yeah, hopefully. All right,
we
go.
did it.
Yes.
Wait, the arena collectively holds its breath. Shady dealer.
Is that good?
He has a pirate. It's a 5/4. He has a pirate in his hand.
That's incredible, and he gets to use the conceal here.
That's incredible.
So yeah, that's definitely better than the Cold Blood would be, because maybe he misses out on 4 damage this turn, but it adds 5 damage for the next turn. He can still use the Cold Blood next turn. So if Georgec was to pick up a Leroy Jenkins in combination with the minions that he already has concealed, that would be 20 damage.
Yep, and Nicslay not really a great choice here. No way to interact with this board in front of him. No way to fish his deck for another conceal. His only draw a card effect is Azure Drake, which he would use all of his mana, so but not too many options available right now.
I think it's pretty straightforward. Just play the Drake, because you know that you can only play one of your minions. So the Drake is the most mana efficient one, and you get to draw a card, which could be a preparation. I can understand the Tomb Pillager. Yeah, I mean, you would get a coin for the Auctioneer, but this game is not going to go that long.
Yeah, agreed. I can say fairly straightforward Azure Drake. So the Tomb Pillager does give him like you said, a coin for the Auctioneer, which if he's desperate, means that he can then, you know, potentially start to daisy chain draws with coin into preparation into something else. So he's obviously assessing the situation that this is a pretty dire spot for him to be in, and that he needs, you know, all the upside possible available to him.
Yeah, so valuing that minion now over that Azure Drake. Georgec did not find his Leroy, so no lethal available, and now he has to be scared of that board and do at least some trading.
Yeah, so how much can he clear here and still set up a guaranteed lethal for himself next turn?
Oh, that's a good call, like the tough call. So if you trade, there's like pretty good trade with the Swashbuckler, I guess, if you Cold Blood it somehow. But what else do you do? Like, do you?
So you could Cold Blood the Burglar into the... So you could play the South Sea... the South Sea Squidface, Cold Blood the Swashbuckler into the Questing Adventurer.
I would expect him to leave up the... I would leave up that the Tomb Pillager. Oh, he's gonna rope here. What if he picks up preparations? He might not have enough time if he finds preparations.
That is a prep!
This is going to be a disaster for Georgec. The time is just not going to be enough.
He didn't even get the conceal off. Did he get the conceal? He did. Okay. Okay.
Did he get it?
We are waiting. We're waiting with bated breath. He got it. All right. Wow. Insane turn.
Wow.
Hanging on by the skin of his teeth there. I think, you know, he might be having some connection issues at the moment, but amazing he's actually still being able to play so optimally, even with some of the struggles that he's running into with the internet connection.
Oh, yeah. Wow. So with that eviscerate that he just threw, he will have lethal next turn, and there's nothing Nicslay can do to stop it. So if you Nicslay, you just have to find lethal right here. But how do you do it? 9 damage on the board. Azure Drake into an eviscerate, that would do it. Because that would be 5.
Yep.
Gadgets an Auctioneer. Coin, prep. No, I don't think he can get there that way, so I think it...
Yeah, if he
just has to be the Drake and get the Evis.
Drakes, he can also pick up Fan of Knives as a redraw as well, because with the coin and the prep, he'll still be able to push through and eviscerate that way as well.
That's true. So, like Cold Blood.
There is the Fan. So if it had gone Drake first, he would have still had a lethal out if the next card is Eviscerate. Backstab wouldn't have got him there, though.
Gotta go fast.
Deadly Poison number 2 means he is up to 12. Looks like he is just going to fall a little bit short as well. And with that Eviscerate in hand from Georgec, I said right at the start that this game was going to come down to a battle of two players just concealing dudes and smashing each other in the face with them, and that's exactly what happened here. SI7 Agent just to proc the combo, Eviscerate to fire it off. Nicslay gives it up straight away. Georgec from 0-2 down up to a 3-2 lead. Now, Savits.
The relief there when I saw that he did actually get the spells done in time. It would be such a shame if game got decided by somebody not having enough time to complete it. Even if it was not a connection issue, but rather just playing slowly. It's just a miserable way to go out.
Yeah, we got word that it was just, in fact, Skype that he's having issues with. His camera has issues. So his internet connection at the venue is fine. He did just decide to play that turn very slowly, which could have been a mistake on his part. But somehow the rope found those extra 10 seconds for him at the end to be able to power through the preparation. But still, pretty entertaining game to watch, honestly. Both pretty much, skipping the mid-game portion of a Rogue Mirror and just digging straight in there to attacking phase, concealing minions, jamming the Cold Bloods on, and in the end, Georgec with that double conceal hand as opposed to the one conceal was able to just, both of the players felt like they were the aggressor, but Georgec was the one that was correct in the end, and that's what meant that he came out on top.
Yeah, the Swashbuckler was so awesome too, just getting that 5-4 for 3 mana. I'm like thinking, should I try playing that card now? Like just putting it in the deck and not just get it from a Swashbuckler in the mirror.
I mean, so the first time, his first Swashbuckler got him the Pirate in the first place, the South Sea Squidface, and then his second Swashbuckler got him the Pirate Synergy, so that he was able to jam a 5-4 on the board and then conceal it. Like, pretty crazy stuff. Georgec now for his spot in the semi-finals. Remember, no man has come so close so many times during this Hearthstone Championship Tour. Easy for me to say. Hearthstone Championship Tour season as Georgec, and he has got one more final chance here, one more last call to make his way to BlizzCon. Yeah,
but I mean, Georgec would also almost been shocked if he got knocked out already in the quarters here. Nicslay, very strong player, but just with Georgec's consistency, it's almost like granted that he's just going to make it very far in the tournament.
Yeah, and wild growth into Maya Keeper here for Georgec. And correct me if I'm wrong, Savits, but I think Georgec has placed Ragnaros the Firelord into his Druid deck as well for this tournament, if I remember rightly.
No, actually,
he hasn't. Okay,
he's still running a Yoxaron.
Interesting.
Many players have chosen to cut Yoxaron after the changes to it. The change effectively makes it a Yoxaron stop casting spells if it kills itself or returns to hand or similar effects. But Georgec is sticking with it.
There is, however, a Harrison Jones in the deck, which is a huge tool. But
so
yeah, that's surprising to me because generally the two decks that you see at the moment are the new Moonkin variation that's still running Yogg, or the older style that's cut the Yogg out and replaced it with Ragnaros. That's the pattern that we've seen going forward, but Georgec's not running the Moonkin version, but still running the Yogg in there.
Yeah, and he has decked in a Harrison Jones, and he should give himself a pat on the back for this one. So strong, playing that, had the Wild Growth earlier, getting a turn 3, 5-4 while drawing 2 cards. That's pretty good. Cards are extremely valuable for Druid.
I said the Harrison Jones was going to be a huge tool, and Nicslay is probably feeling like Georgec is kind of a huge tool right now after that play. He is not going to be happy with the situation. Weapon gets destroyed, 2 cards, 5-4s worth of pressure on the board as well, so Georgec in a really strong spot here with all the resource he needs.
Not only did Georgec get a very good start, but Nicslay is looking at a very awkward turn here. He only has that questing adventure to play for a minion. He would have loved to have something like a Tomb Pillager, or at least a way to remove the Harrison cleanly. You don't want to sap it.
Sap Harrison, yeah.
That's the only way to get it off the board right now, so...
He does, I mean, looking on the bright side for Nicslay here, being the eternal optimist that everyone knows I am, he does have a pretty powerful Questing Adventurer hand here. This is the kind of hand that he would have loved to have had the previous game after he concealed his Questing Adventurer.
Yeah.
So maybe he feels like he can leverage this questing to some sort of advantage. But yeah, this is a rogue player sapping a Harrison Jones. That is the desperate situation that Nicslay is in right now.
If he had a conceal to go with all that, it would have been great. Because next turn he could have kept going with it and just cold-blooded and maybe get it out of the range for the removal. But Georgec has a lot of different ways to just remove it, and even an innervate to potentially improve his own board state. So I'm looking at like something like maybe Wrath, Living Roots, innervate Mire Keeper, or he could just swipe. How about just Nourish for mana? Probably want to draw with it later. I don't know.
Nourish for mana.
So
Wrath Hero Power is possible. Yeah, yeah. Lots of silly things. Actually, you can Nourish for mana, Innovate, Swipe as well if you want to really go all the way in. So, yeah. I mean, take your pick.
Yeah,
all of these plays are available to you, George. You have a multitude of options to kill a 4/4. Honestly, in the position that you're in here, all of them are probably put you in an advantageous situation. He's going to go just for the simple option. We spent 40 seconds that turn or so, Savitz, thinking of the most elaborate way that we could kill a 4/4. George just goes with a simple plan.
I couldn't figure it out. I'm not sure what would have been the best one out of all those options. And the only thing that was that he had to absolutely do was to remove that.
Oh yeah,
that questing from the board. It was not an option to leave it up, but yeah, swipes that, plays the Living Roots. Sure, why not?
Yeah, so Nicslay, stress starting to get the better of him here. He's obviously not feeling too great, and actually I think notable. I don't think there was the pause and the moment of composure at the start of this game that we've seen in all of the other ones. So the pressure might just be starting to get to him here as he's letting such an advantageous situation slip away here from 2-0 up to 3-2 down.
Yeah, and it's also like Nicslay, he really doesn't have many plays right now. Even if he picked up an Auctioneer, he wouldn't have any preps to go with it. He wouldn't have a conceal for it. If he chooses to make a new dagger, he knows that Georgec has a Harrison Jones just ready and waiting. That's a good first step. But he still needs to find a conceal for it for next turn, or a preparation to kind of kickstart things, I guess.
Yeah, still 2 remaining in the deck, but none of these cards seem particularly appropriate to react to this situation. You want to save the backstab to pair with the Auctioneer. You don't want to be shadow striking a 3/3 against a deck where Fandral Staghelm exists. So suddenly, all of these options are just looking incredibly frustrating for Nicslay, but as you said, he knows he can't afford to just have a dagger pass turn, because that gets blown out way harder than anything else, because he knows he's sapped this Harrison Jones back into his opponent's hand.
Yeah, he might just do it anyway. He knows that at least Georgec will have to spend 5 mana to play the Harrison again, so there's that. But yeah, things are looking very dire for Nicslay. He already used one preparation earlier too, so there's only one remaining in the deck right now. So the Auctioneer can't even be all that crazy. Another dagger in the museum. Wow, is it getting sapped one more time?
Another dagger in the museum, another dagger in the heart of Nicslay at this point. He knows his run to BlizzCon is potentially coming to an end very quickly here. He has to dig deep and find something spectacular here, or this is going to slip away from his grasp very, very fast.
Yeah, the Auctioneer doesn't do much here. I would expect him to be holding off with it for now. Just going for the backstab Assai, Eviscerate, and hoping to pick up that conceal. Georgec is still with so many plays for days. The Harrison gave him 3 cards additional, and he has the Norris, so he could draw for more. Yorks are on. I don't think we're gonna see that York getting played in this game at all. Georgec is in such a comfortable position, but who knows, maybe he only finds more spells and Nicslay will get the Dream Auctioneer.
Yeah, we'll see. Nourish to draw here just again. Well, you said, what if he just draws all spells?
Yeah,
that, as far as I'm concerned, is a hand of, 7 spells and a Yogg-Saron, so...
It doesn't do that much. Malygos might be the last card in his deck.
Do you want to reevaluate your position? That's 3 Raven Idols that we can loop here into this Yogg. I don't know.
No Arcane Giants in his hand either, so while he does get those awesome discounts for his Giants, he won't be able to get that. Oh my... Well, I guess Moonclad Portal is okay, but... I mean, you're not picking a Notice, you already have one.
Yeah, Moonglade Portal definitely seems like the play here. Georgec is just going to keep playing Raven Idols until he sees something that he likes the look of here. Feral Rage number 2 seems reasonable. So now Georgec has to consider whether he wants to recognize the threat of this 3-3 or just save up the enormous amount of burst that he has in hand. He's going to go for the latter. And with 2 Feral Rages in hand, he can basically afford to just tank damage and draw cards until he hits Malygos at this point, and then just win the game from that position.
But Nicslay here, he needs to get a little bit lucky with the next draws. If he picks up that Conceal,
he needs it. He
needs
it
really,
so badly.
He has to get it. Now a preparation maybe first.
Nope.
Well, that's 10 damage, and he picked up a Leroy, but there's still a long way to go because of those double Feral Rages in Georgec's hand.
Yeah, there is removal in hand, there is 16 armor, and there is 6 health gain with the Moonglade Portal. So even if Nicslay feels like he's making a push here, he is still a long, long way away as Swipe Living Roots now takes care of the board. Moonglade Portal will come out, healing back to 25. And he's going to use Feral Rage instead here, just to tank maximum amount of armor here.
Yeah, there's 1 mana off from using that Moonglade Portal.
Oh, was he? Oh, my apologies.
He has to go for that one. But still, like, it's pretty good. Doesn't get the minion on the board, but he doesn't need it. Like, I don't think Georgec even needs to necessarily, with this hand, kill Nicslay. He can just try to play as much time as possible. He can just play it defensive, remove every single minion. And yeah, I mean, there's also that possibility that he might draw the Malygos at any moment, and then those double Moonfires are going to kick in.
Yeah, completely agree. And right at the start of this turn, we saw Nicslay think about the option of just Leroy Fan of Knives just to connect with face and at least be able to cycle a card, and then quickly told himself that that play seemed ridiculous, and then reassessing maybe he needs to do something ridiculous to have a chance in this game. So, I mean, Leroy Fan, do you like it, Savitz? Is it a play that's ever going to get him anywhere in this game?
I don't know. I almost feel like he needs Leroy Coldblood Conceal or something. But
I agree.
He is going to go for it. He has to make something happen. Time is against him here, and he knows that Georgec has 7 cards in his hand. Will draw another one, so he has to make something happen. I can't blame him for this.
There is a Fandral Staghelm being drawn, which means the Feral Rage can now be used for dual purpose to take care of this and gain the armor if he wants, but he's just going to go ahead and Nourish, gain the mana. Still has Feral Rage available to him if he needs to, but he can pick up better options like Living Roots at this point to take care of it. But yeah, Feral Rage is going to be the tool here, and he does now have the inevitability of that Malygos in his hand.
Yep, he got it. And probably going to use his face on that Leroy, but he would just... I'm trying to think if he could just Moonfire and play the defensive game, but with that Malygos, like, it's kind of weird to be wasting those Moonfires.
You've seen a Cold Blood, you've seen a Conceal, you've seen a Questing. Like, that's a long list of the things that are going to hit you really, really hard in this build of the Rogue from Nicslay. So I don't think he has to be too concerned about his life, especially since he has the gain of Moonglade Portal in his hand as well.
Right. That's a good point. The Moonglade Portal really gives him like a kind of a safety net there. Nicslay here, not too many plays available, doesn't have as many cards as Georgec does, and Nicslay just playing his entire hand and hoping for a miracle.
It's an 8-8 Van Cleef. I mean, if anything was going to give him a chance this game, that's high on the list. But Feral Rage number 3 now from Georgec alongside that Moonglade Portal. I think we are just going to see the board control play here from Georgec. Yeah, I love this plan. No cards in hand here for the Rogue. 1 sap already used, so the potential to answer this Malygos is very low from Nicslay, meaning that he can just dominate the board from here.
That's not exactly what Nicslay was hoping to get.
Some people might call that the worst draw in the deck.
It was the worst draw in the deck.
It was, yeah. Some people might call that the second worst draw in the deck.
Well, I mean, it's 4 damage with the if you combo it with the prep, and then yeah.
Yes, it is.
The best play at this point might be in the bottom right corner for Nicslay. Just go for that Conceal, but there's so much at stake, and it's pretty hard to just give up when the stakes are so high.
Sorry, there are those 0 mana Arcane Giants that Georgec has been looking for all game, but Georgec is just going to take this one nice and slow. Not a single card in hand to take advantage of the fact that he just has a Malagos on the board. So he's just going to use its value as a 4/11 to control the board, and he is going to use the value of tactical BM emotes to frustrate his opponent. It looks like Georgec is walking this one home. That bottom right play might just be coming into effect soon, Savitz.
Yeah, Georgec, maybe a little bit unnecessary to be emoting there, but he's enjoying the moment. He knows that he is almost guaranteed to move on to the semifinals, so I'm sure it's nothing personal that directed at Nicslay, trying to just be mean. Missed caller, not so good, but not that it matters.
This is just Georgec going through the formalities here. Nicslay, the most important game of Hearthstone of his life to date. Since the Winter Championships, he hung on for as long as he could, not giving up the concede, but it's going to be Georgec, Mr. HCT consistency, who is going to be banking his spot in the semi-finals now to play against Pavel, a battle of two of the young superstars of the circuit, honestly.
Oh, that's going to be a good one to watch. I'll be taking a close eye on that and watching every single game. It's going to be amazing. Georgec, as pretty much everyone predicted, I suppose. Points to Nicslay. I think he had a good showing, but Georgec just too strong this time.
Yeah, Georgec definitely coming into this tournament as one of the favorites, being picked by our analysts as one of the potential winners.